Welcome to the certificate course on diabetes nutrition. The faculty will be Brinda Rajkumari. So here we'll be looking into the course contents of the certificate course on diabetes nutrition. So the modules will be Introduction to Diabetes, Definition and Classification of Diabetes mellitus, Diagnosis, Signs and Symptoms of Diabetes mellitus, Management of Diabetes, Dietary Management of Diabetes Part 1, Dietary Management of Diabetes Part 2, Role of Exercise in the Management of Diabetes, Acute and Long-Term Complications of Diabetes, Healthy Food Choices for People with Diabetes, and the last module will be Self-Management of Diabetes. So, and then we'll be looking into the contents of each module. In module 1, Introduction to Diabetes, we'll be looking into health problems and nutritional status of Indians, prevalence and risk factors, what is the connection between food and diabetes, the role of the dietitian in diabetes care. In module 2, Definition and Classification of Diabetes mellitus, definition, pre-diabetes, what happens if one has pre-diabetes, diabetes, classification, uh, type 1 diabetes mellitus, type 2 diabetes mellitus, and gestational diabetes mellitus. In module 3, we'll be dealing with diagnosis, signs, and symptoms of diabetes mellitus. Diagnostic criteria, oral glucose tolerance test, HbA1c, GDM test, and signs and symptoms of diabetes. In module 4, management of diabetes. The general objectives of diabetes management, the major components of diabetes treatment, in which we'll be looking into diet combined with exercise, oral hypoglycemic therapy, and insulin treatment. In module 5, dietary management of diabetes part 1. In this part, we'll be dealing with objectives of dietary treatment of diabetes, medical nutrition therapy for diabetes, in which we'll be dealing in detail of each nutrients, which includes carbohydrate intake. Among carbohydrate intake, we'll be dealing into glycemic index, glycemic load, carbohydrate counting, how do you count carbohydrates, fiber and whole grains, non-nutritive and hypocaloric sweeteners. And in module 6, the second part of the dietary management of diabetes, medical nutrition therapy for diabetes includes protein intake, fat intake, alcohol, micronutrients, and herbal supplements. In module 7, the role of the exercise in the management of diabetes, physical activity or exercise, potential problems with diabetes, potential problems with exercise, exercise guidelines, exercise recommendations. In module 8, the acute and long-term complications of diabetes. In acute complications, we'll be dealing with hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia, and diabetic ketoacidosis. Long-term complications, we'll be dealing with two different diseases, micro and macrovascular diseases, in which we discuss on dyslipidemia, hypertension, diabetic kidney disease, retinopathy, and neuropathy. In module 9, healthy food choices for people with diabetes. Those include non-starchy vegetables, fruits, milk, grains and starchy vegetables, whole grain foods, legumes and lentils, starchy vegetables, protein and fats. The foods to be included and avoided in for people with diabetes, sample Indian diabetic diet plan, diet and physical activity guidelines. And in module 10, we'll be discussing on the self-management of diabetes. It includes self-management education, and under the monitoring part, we'll be discussing on three parts. Self-monitoring of blood glucose, SMBG, continuous glucose monitoring, CGM, A1C monitoring, and ketone, lipid, and blood pressure monitoring. So this is the overview of the certificate course on diabetes nutrition. So we'll be looking in detail in the course part.